Kevin Spacey wasn't just a star. He was a force, a two-time Oscar winner, a commanding stage actor, a Netflix juggernaut. From The Usual Suspects to American Beauty to House of Cards, he had the kind of range that made him both revered and feared in Hollywood. But behind the camera, a different story was unfolding. One far more disturbing than any role he ever played. This is the rise and downfall of a man once hailed as one of Hollywood's greatest, and how his legacy may never recover.
Before we go on, smash that like button and subscribe so we can keep bringing you more jaw-dropping legacy-lost stories.
Kevin Spacey's story didn't begin with scandal. It began with brilliance. He trained at Juilliard, refined his craft on stage, and emerged as a powerhouse in the theater world long before Hollywood noticed. By the mid-90s, Spacey had become the actor everyone respected but didn't quite understand. He had that slippery charm, a cool, calculated presence that made you lean in and then question what you just saw. In 1995, The Usual Suspects changed everything. His role as Roger "Verbal" Kint, the quiet, limping con man who turns out to be criminal mastermind Kaiser Soze, earned him his first Academy Award. And not just for acting, for control. He stole every scene, commanded the twist, became the face of cinematic deception. 4 years later,
The Oscar goes to Kevin Spacey.
American Beauty secured him a second Oscar. As Lester Burnham, he portrayed the disillusioned suburban dad spiraling into fantasy and rebellion. The performance was haunting, vulnerable, and mesmerizing. By 2000, Kevin Spacey was at the top of the mountain. He hosted the Oscars. He got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was named the artistic director of London's prestigious Old Vic Theatre. Critics called him the next Olivier. But behind the accolades were rumors, whispers, questions about his personal life, his behavior, and his power behind closed doors. For years, those whispers stayed buried, until the fall of 2017, when the entire industry began to crack. In 2013, Spacey found a new kind of stardom, one built for the streaming era. Netflix was still finding its footing, and House of Cards was its gamble. A political thriller led by a charismatic villain? Risky. But with Kevin Spacey as Frank Underwood, it worked. More than worked. It exploded. Spacey played Underwood with a southern drawl and a Machiavellian edge. He broke the fourth wall. He made the viewer complicit. And people loved it. He won a Golden Globe. The show earned multiple Emmys, and Spacey became the first actor in a streaming show to be nominated for a major Emmy Award. At the height of the show, he was making over $20 million a year. He wasn't just starring. He was producing, shaping the narrative, calling the shots. Netflix viewed him as a pillar, a franchise, an anchor for its future. But behind the scenes, Spacey's real persona allegedly mirrored the manipulation of Frank Underwood, minus the southern charm. Reports from the set began to emerge. Uncomfortable encounters, intimidation, a culture of silence. Some claimed Spacey had inappropriate relationships with younger crew members. Others said he wielded power like a weapon, making it impossible to speak out. Still, nothing surfaced publicly, until Anthony Rapp. Rapp, a respected Broadway and TV actor, revealed in October 2017 that Spacey had made a sexual advance toward him at a party in 1986, when Rapp was just 14 years old. The internet erupted. The media swarmed. Spacey responded with a statement that did nothing to help his case. He said he didn't remember the encounter but apologized anyway. Then, in a bizarre pivot, he used the moment to come out as gay. Critics immediately called it a deflection, a manipulation. He wasn't taking accountability. He was trying to reframe the narrative. And just like that, the dam burst. Once Anthony Rapp spoke out, it was as if the dam broke. Within weeks, over 30 new accusers came forward. Some were actors, some crew members. Many were young men, barely legal at the time of their alleged encounters. The stories had eerie similarities: isolation, intimidation, manipulation. and most disturbingly, a sense that Kevin Spacey believed he was untouchable. Netflix acted fast. Production on House of Cards was immediately suspended. Then they dropped Spacey entirely. Frank Underwood, gone. Scripts rewritten. Marketing scrapped. An entire show restructured overnight. Hollywood followed suit. Ridley Scott cut Spacey out of all the money in the world after the film was already finished. He brought in Christopher Plummer, reshot all of Spacey's scenes in 9 days, and still made the premiere deadline. That had never happened before. It was a clear message. You are no longer welcome here. But Spacey didn't go quietly. He retreated, then re-emerged in the weirdest way imaginable. On Christmas Eve 2018, he uploaded a video to YouTube titled "Let Me Be Frank." In it, he dressed and spoke as Frank Underwood, breaking the fourth wall just like on House of Cards. But this wasn't a promo. This was real life, blending into fiction.
But you wouldn't believe the worst without evidence, would you? You wouldn't rush to judgments without fact.
He stared into the camera and said things like, "You wouldn't believe the worst without evidence, would you?" And "You want me back." The tone? Sinister, defiant, delusional. People were stunned. Was this an audition? A threat? A cry for help? Whatever it was disturbing. He released another one the following Christmas, and then another, all while legal chaos raged on. Spacey faced multiple lawsuits and criminal charges in both the US and the UK. In Massachusetts, he was accused of groping an 18-year-old busboy at a bar. In London, he was charged with 12 counts of sexual assault stemming from incidents between 2001 and 2013. His legal team played hardball. Some charges were dropped. Some accusers withdrew. But the damage was done. Even when a jury found him not liable in Anthony Rapp's civil suit, it didn't matter. The verdict didn't restore trust. It didn't bring him back into the fold. Because by that point, Kevin Spacey wasn't seen as innocent. He was seen as radioactive. The roles dried up. The invitations stopped. And the man who once commanded the room was now a ghost, haunting his own reputation. By 2020, Kevin Spacey had become a Hollywood phantom. No studio would touch him. No streaming service would return his calls. His name was synonymous with disgrace, a cautionary tale whispered behind the scenes. And yet, he didn't disappear. He resurfaced in strange, unsettling ways. Each Christmas, Spacey released another monologue on YouTube, always in character as Frank Underwood. No explanation, no context, just Frank. He'd stare into the camera and deliver lines like, "You didn't really think I'd disappear forever, did you? I know what you want. You want me back." These weren't performances. They felt like psychological warfare, aimed at the audience that once adored him. But instead of reclaiming relevance, they deepened the public's unease. Behind the scenes, Spacey was fighting battles in courtrooms around the world. In the UK, he was charged with a dozen counts of sexual assault. The allegations came from 4 different men, spanning over a decade. The trial became a media circus. Spacey showed up in suits, smirking, waving to cameras. He pleaded not guilty, and in July 2023, he was acquitted on all counts. His defense team framed it as vindication. They said justice had been served. But outside the courtroom, the celebration was hollow, because no amount of courtroom victories could erase what had happened. Not the headlines, not the testimonies, not the fall from grace. Hollywood remained silent. Even as some disgraced stars found their way back into the industry, Spacey was kept at arm's length. He landed a role in a low-budget European indie film, The Man Who Drew God, directed by an embattled filmmaker also facing allegations. It barely registered. It wasn't a comeback. It was a last gasp. Meanwhile, the roles that once would have been his for the taking were long gone. There was no talk of Netflix redemption, no Oscar buzz, no Hollywood handshakes, because for an industry built on image and perception, Kevin Spacey had become too toxic to market. And in a cruel twist, the very talent that once elevated him now trapped him in isolation. He was too famous to fade quietly, too controversial to be forgiven, too proud to apologize. And so he drifted in this in-between space, not convicted, but not welcomed. A man erased not by law, but by legacy. There was a time when Kevin Spacey was seen as one of the greatest actors of his generation. 2 Oscars, a Golden Globe, dozens of iconic performances. He could disappear into any role. He could chill you with a glance, command you with a whisper. He wasn't just respected, he was revered. But now, when people hear his name, they don't think of The Usual Suspects or American Beauty. They think of scandal, of lawsuits, of men stepping forward, trembling, finally telling their truth. His body of work still exists. His performances are still brilliant, but they come with a stain that no amount of artistry can erase. And that's the paradox of Kevin Spacey. When you build a career on mystery, and that mystery turns toxic. He may never see a prison cell, but in the eyes of millions, he's already been sentenced to irrelevance. And in an industry built on attention, irrelevance is the harshest punishment of all.
Before you go, smash that like button and subscribe to Legacy Lost. These are the stories that define our era, and we've got more coming.